Hello everyone, Mark here, Mark's Max Muscle, and today we are going to take a look at this very pose, the most muscular, in particular, the crab position, and that's what this gentleman here, a friend of mine actually, Ty Jordan, bodybuilder, obviously, he is hitting this to a T, and there won't be any other versions in this video. I will be making a feature strictly based on the hands clasped after this one, but this is strictly for the crab position, most muscular. So guys, let's go back in time, way back when, guys, and I'm sure you guys, most of you people know who this is, Eugene Sandow, and it's more often than not that I see him beginning my pose, my mandatory pose videos with a hit to spec pose. I mean, was he a time traveler? Did he go back in time and hit all these poses? I mean, this is your classic crab position, most muscular. And actually, there wasn't really any other bodybuilders for quite some time. This gentleman here, he competed, I believe, in the 50s, maybe up until the 60s. George Eiferman. And this is just scraping by as a crab position. It's more of a hands clasp, to tell you the truth. Here is Melvin Wells, an outstanding and very underrated bodybuilder. He's hitting this a little bit, I don't know, I guess funny, or I could see how he could hit it better with the physique that he has. Has those traps popping though, fantastic, worth mentioning. Now here's a gentleman here, definitely worth mentioning, Reg Park, one of your more famous bodybuilders from the early years, 60s, I guess. He competed all through 70, up until the 70s. Harold Pohl. You don't hear too much about Harold Pohl. This is somewhat of a hands clasp, but he is popping those traps, and that's what I'm looking for in a crab position, most muscular. For his time, some of the best stuff, guys. Here's Earl Maynard. He actually has a victory over Sergio Oliva, for goodness sakes, on the Olympia stage. If you can imagine that. And speaking of Sergio Oliva, he brought the biggest, thickest, most muscular that the bodybuilding stage has ever seen. The late 60s. I'm telling you right now, it wasn't until, I guess, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now he was good in this pose. He was really the first one to look just, godlike, outstanding. But, as you can see here, it wasn't every year, but here in 1972, there was a gentleman here, Serge Nabray, and he looked like he was better than both of those gentlemen in this pose. I'm telling you right now, in 1972, Serge Nabray looked like a modern-day bodybuilder. He'd have been accused of synthal use, growth hormones. I'm telling you, man, this guy was it. But if you look through his career, this here was pretty much the best that he's ever looked in this pose. You look at a 1975 and immediately, guys, you see the delts just disappear, taking nothing away from the 1975 Serge Nabray. I mean, he still has the delts, things of that nature, but I mean, compared to Sergio Oliva here, I believe this was a little bit later in his career, maybe even 1980. For Sergio Oliva. He looked fantastic, to tell you the truth, to be honest with you. But out of the three, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger here in 1974, probably the best. And to date, he was probably the best. This is, of course, 1974. Fast forward 1 year later, 1975. He must have been 20 pounds leaner, but he still had that silhouette. He filled out the traps, the chest. Little Franco Columbo, I guess by default he gets thrown in here, but it's just not. That's the only reason. He's not, I'm not going to say he doesn't hit this well. He's not going to be in the video. Here is a gentleman he was around then. He was sneaking up. He was in 74, 75, and then he retired early. But what a most muscular, guys. And this here is from when he was retired. He was playing the Incredible Hulk. And this is a non-competitive bodybuilder. Think about that, guys. These are the lost years for Lou. Imagine that. dry and striated up on stage. And he actually did compete a couple of years later in the 1990s. And just unbelievable, guys. He looks aesthetic, as crazy as that sounds. And it translated fantastically on stage, for sure. One of the best. So I would even say Lou might even be better than Arnold Schwarzenegger, for goodness sakes. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. We are still back in the 70s, and there was Mike Katz. There was a big dude, all the way big dude. Over 6 feet tall, and shaped like that. Incredible. Mosey on into the 1980s. Mike Menzer. He was not a bad gentleman at all to hit this pose. He looked pretty darn good, and he was very dry and striated for the time. And before we get into full-blown 80s, we have to consider Robbie Robinson as more of a 70s bodybuilder, but he competed up into the 80s, 90s, 2000s. The man is still jacked, I'm here to tell you, Robbie. So he gets mentioned. And little Danny Padilla, actually. It's silent, L's. Not bad in the pose. Worth the mention. Roy Callender, get into the 80s, and it was less often that you'd see a fantastic most muscular. It was more of a 70s thing, but there was a group of guys, and Roy Callender, one of them for sure. And this gentleman here, the Olympia champion, guys, Samir Banu, not the biggest cat in town, but look how striated his chest was, and he pops those traps fully. Grizzly bear. Or a lion. Sorry, he's a lion, not a grizzly bear. This gentleman here, Brutal Bertil Fox. Now, at one time, I would have considered him maybe even the greatest of all time, but all things considered, I mean, he's a lot shorter than, say, an Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Lou Ferrigno. And as muscular as he is, I'm not so sure that he's going to be considered the best when there is, and there was a Lou Ferrigno that competed before him. But he basically got his results, Lou did, after Brutal Bertil Fox retired. Here's a gentleman, Gunnar Rosbo, never competed on the Olympia stage, but I definitely would say that he is worth to mention. He competed actually many times against this gentleman here, Lee Haney, the 8-time Mr. Olympia champion. Maybe not the best pose for him certain years, but I believe here in 1985, if I'm not mistaken, he really filled this out with some rock hard muscle. Lee Haney, awesome. Hulk Hogan, not bad. And speaking of Lee's, Lee Labrada, very, very underrated in this pose, for sure. I mean, the guy was not very big, and he was a monster. At his body weight, I would even wager to say he was well under 200 pounds. And here, compare him with Flex Wheeler. If any of you guys are wondering why I didn't put Flex Wheeler in this video, well, I gotta say, little Lee Labrada, pretty much taking him to school. But hey, Flex Wheeler does get mentioned. After all, he's right there. Maniac, Mike Quinn, not bad. I figured I would throw a few names like this in. And there was Gary Strydex. He actually morphed into a different way to hit the pose, but in his leaner years, he pulled off a crab position, Gary Strydex. Here is the man, Sonny Schmidt. He held his hands a different way. I'm not going to say it's a funny way, but I mean, hey, it's pretty darn good. And here is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I thought I already did him. No, I'm just joking, guys. This is Roland Kickinger or Kickacan. I can't exactly pronounce. I think it's Kickinger. Roland. He played Arnold in a TV movie. Very, very, very low budget. Here's Paul Dalette. In case any of you guys were wondering why he's not the best at this. He's more of a hands clasped, most muscular guy. And even in 1994 here, his best version. I mean, he looks good. But, like I said, more suited to the crab or the hands clasped. As was this gentleman here, Victor Richards. I mean, he looked full, big, thick. But he was, again, like a Paul Dalette, much more suited to that hands clasped. And he will definitely be. Both of them will be prominently featured in that video. And this is a thick, full, maybe a little unconditioned switch to this type of a physique, guys. Andreas Menzer. Oh my goodness. It looks like it hurts to be that cut. You want to see a guy ready for a bodybuilding competition? This guy is ready. Ready, for sure. Mike Francois, worth to mention, guys. Worth to mention. There was a load of guys in the mid-90s. I mean, Sean Ray. Sean Ray looked outstanding in this pose. He had an outstanding hands clasped, but his crab may have been the best for him. Now, this gentleman here, I'm sure I will get at least some comments that didn't even look at the video and hear that it is only for crab position most musculars. There's going to be people that are going to say that Kevin Levrone has the best, most muscular of all time. Well, not the crab. He's better at the hands clasped. There was a guy like Aaron Baker might even been more suited to his to the pose with his physique. And guys, take a look at this man here. He might even be the best of all time. Probably not going to pick him at the end of the video, but I mean, definitely deserves. This is Roland Zerlock, I believe. Roland Zerlock. He was featured in a Tominator video, best delts of all time, and Tominator. He knew what he was talking about. This guy just can't say enough good things. I mean, take a look at Nasser Elson body, and to be honest with you guys, that Roland Zerlock, wow, fantastic. Nasser here in 1997. Actually, let's do a little shootout between the three big names here. Nasser, Kevin in the crab, and Sean in the crab. I would say when the smoke cleared out of this little matchup, Nasser might be the better man. And speaking of big men, let's have a look at a small man. Lee Priest. Not bad, not without his charms. Again, though, like Kevin Levrone, maybe the better hands clasped variety. And go from the small man to the big man, Jean Bidon, Pierre Fuchs. Jean Bidon, man, this guy was holy cow. What is he, 700 pounds, strided on stage? Just a giant, guys. He dwarfed even the likes of, drumroll please, King Coleman. Yes, buddy. Yes, buddy. He had a perfect most muscular. He had the delts, chest, traps, everything flowed. And here he is when he was a giant at 300 pounds. 2003, Mr. Olympia. You recognize that version? I'm sure most of you do. Here he is in 2005. And I honestly think when the smoke cleared from his career, 2005, he had the best balance of size and conditioning, muscle separation for this pose here. Maybe not the best in the back development that year, but I have to say, maybe the best, finest crab position, most muscular. Let's throw Dennis James in here in the mix. Got to throw a couple different names in. Not saying they're the best. In here is the big man himself, Gunther Schlierkamp. Gunther Schlierkamp, not bad, not bad. Melvin Anthony, surprisingly fantastic in this pose here. Look at the traps on this man. Not the biggest dude in the park. This guy here would be the biggest dude in the park. Looks like he's holding his privates there. You see that? This top of his stomach looks like the end of his private. My goodness, that's dirty. That's terrible. That's terrible. But anyway, guys, look at him compared to the King Coleman. And King Coleman was massive here. I believe 2004. He was a huge Hostetler that year. And Marcus Rule, just as big, maybe even bigger. Let's wind down for some smaller dudes here. And this is Johnny O. Jackson. Now, when I envision a crab position most muscular, this is what I see. This is what I see. Arms, not too big. I like maybe a bigger chest. But those traps, I want to see those traps a-poppin', guys. Traps a-poppin', for sure. Here's another small gentleman, David Henry, and he looked wow, outstanding back in the day, guys. If he looked like this heading into this year's Olympia, he would take the 212 division for sure. I think this is 2006. I believe this is 2006. This is a lineup, guys. You got King Coleman. Hey, there's the very first we're seeing of Dexter the Blade Jackson, and Jay Cutler. I believe Jay Cutler was a little better at this pose, maybe in 2009, so we'll take another look at him. And I guess Victor Martinez gets thrown in here. This is Bill Wilmore. Take a look at this guy. I like to throw guys in like this. You wouldn't know very well, but this guy here, fantastic. Fills this out to a T. But on the contrary, this gentleman here, very well known, Dennis Wolfe. And personally, guys, I think he may be one of the best. He has the height. He has the size. Like a Lou Ferrigno, I like the height. And look at him just making Ronnie Coleman look like a small child. Can you believe that one? Can you believe that one? Actually, let's do a little quick comparison here. Just food for thought. This is Dennis Wolfe against Lou Ferrigno. Lou, much taller. He's 6'5". You got to think, guys. But Dennis Wolfe, not without his charms at all. Different eras. Different eras. I think maybe it's going to be between one of these two, I think. Dexter the Blade Jackson. You cannot have a crab position, most muscular video with the best of all time without putting him in there. It's 2008. And then there's 2009. And this was, in my opinion, the best crab position for Jay Cutler in his earlier years. Maybe not the best. Here's Joel Stubbs. And you don't hear much about Joel Stubbs anymore. What a crab position, most muscular he presented. And then, of course, you got the doctor, Phil Heath. Of course he's going to be mentioned. Now, and there's going to be people that are going to be telling me he has the best, most muscular of all time. I think for this video, yes, he looks outstanding, guys. But for me, in my mind, I see his arms are a little too big and chest might be a little too small. And you know what I'm saying, guys? It's good, but it's just not quite perfect. There's Big Ramy. You can't leave him out. He looks pretty good. This is Big Ramy, and this is Lean Ramy. You see that? Even in the leaner versions, he must be about 30 pounds lighter that year than he was the previous year. I believe that was 2015, and this is 16. Not exactly sure. Apologize. Rolly the Beast Winkler, and again, I'm sure I will get some people telling me he's the best. He's more suited, honestly, to the hands clasped, where he does his own different version. Here he is in 2017. Here, you see the size of his delts. Now he's almost hitting a hands clasp, but I guess it could be considered a crab position. But like I said, guys, maybe not the best version of the most muscular for him. Justin Compton. If he was sitting at home watching this video, he's probably thinking, well, heck, I almost said the bad word for heck. My most muscular is good. Why doesn't he put me in the video? There you are, Justin Compton. Fantastic. As well as this guy here. And you know what? It gets kind of confusing and hazy because Cedric McMillan, he could be easily one of the greatest of all time to hit this pose if he would stay dry and strided like he was here. I guess these are the two top dogs of now, guys, and I believe we have seen the best days of the most muscular. Brandon Curry and little tiny Bonac. And like I said, guys, for a crab position most muscular, for me, I like the size. I like the stature. There's honestly not too many guys that hit it quite perfectly anymore. Here's one guy, and honestly, guys, this is probably the last of the current bodybuilders that you're going to see. Antoine Vaillant, or Androul, however you pronounce his last name. I had a hard time with it. You guys got mad at me. He has big traps. Antoine, fellow Canadian boy, don't you know? So, guys, as the smoke clears, I'm going to say Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was the best for his time. And then you had Lou Ferrigno. I mean, he had the 80s where he didn't compete, but my goodness, still in the 90s. And then Dennis Wolfe. for the more modern day bodybuilders. Now, which one's the best? Which one is the best to hit this pose? It's a matter of a personal opinion here, guys. Could have went either way, depending on your flavor, depending on what you prefer. I'm going with Lou Ferrigno. He is so iconic in this pose. I think he sleeps in this pose. I'm here to tell you, the crab position, most muscular. And if there was ever a bodybuilder that was embodied by one pose, it would be Lou Ferrigno with this crab position, most muscular. I mean, Arnold had the front double bi. He had the most muscular. He had a bunch of poses that were symbolistic of him, but none other than Lou Ferrigno and the crab position, most muscular. That is a marriage, guys, made in heaven. Oh my soul, we're past 20 minutes. Go have your protein shakes, hit thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram. Have a fantastic day, guys.